Morning, afternoon. Busy morning this morning. Had bales delivered, which will feature in a film. I've got a neighbour in with a digger, and I'm also steeping a hedge, hence the more than usually dishevelled and knackered look. So yeah, I'll tell you more about that. So, some of you have seen my hedge trimming with the tractor, and one or two people said I ought to lay the hedges. Well, I do. But I do it sort of in rotation. I lay the hedges, then keep them trimmed, then maybe let them grow for 10 or 15 years, and then after 10 or 15 years steep them again. I tend to try to keep the road hedge or the lane hedge trimmed though. So all of this lane hedge over the last umpteen years, it's all been steeped, and what I trim is what's grown back after the steeping or the laying of the hedge. But there's this stretch that I've sort of never got to because I've had more important hedges to do. But this year I'm going to do just a few yards, and also it'll hopefully show subscribers that are and viewers that are interested how I steep the hedges. So as you can see, what have I done from there to there, I don't know, 6 or 7 yards, and you can see where the work is with laying a hedge. There's 6 or 7 yards up there, but on both sides of the hedge there's this absolute wreckage of brash that's come out of the hedge. So my experience tells me that if you know, for every hour you spend up on the hedge, there's at least an hour of tidying up, particularly when it's on a road that people want to use. You can't just leave it for another time. So the hard bit of this hedge has been done, and what I mean by that is it's where you start. So you've got to get into the hedge somehow to give yourself room to steep it. So what you can see here, can't get there, is this bit here is what I've done at some point in the past, and you can see the new growth. So this is where I cut into the hedge this morning to create some space to start steeping it over. So these bits here, I'm not going to bother to steep them over because you can see the got plenty down across the hedge. I'll just hack those back to stimulate new growth. And there's a bit of blackthorn in behind, which is looking very wiry and terrible at the moment, but I'll see what I can do with that, try and weave it into this, and that'll give that blackthorn a new lease of life when the light gets into it. So this has got to go. So we got quite a gap here. So what I want, but I've got some, at least I've got some different species. Got a tiny bit of beech, a little bit of blackthorn. There's a blackthorn bush there, a blackthorn bush there. So I think what I'm going to do is clean out all the hazel from around it, see how those blackthorns are looking, probably prune them back, and then try to steep a bit of hazel around either side of the blackthorn. So I'd like to try to keep the blackthorn in the hedge for a bit of variety. I think I'll go around the other side and do some tidying up first. I've gone further than I thought I would, because Alan was out here doing some work for me with the digger, and I've got him to heave up a load of the brash with his bucket and blade. So that's saved me a hell of a lot of time. So I've got a bit further than I hoped really. Got as far as this landmark piece of holly. Just going to leave that. I'm not going to try to steep that over. I'm just going to let that stay and trim off the top next year. So let's go up and have a little look. So there, you see, so I've taken back the big clumps of old hazel and bent them over as sort of as close to the bottom as I can without ramming the chainsaw through too much dirt and filth. I've used a chainsaw because it is so much quicker. I always have my hook with me for various bits and pieces, but for hacking through such an overgrown, mature hedge, I find that if I try and do it all with bow saw and hook, satisfying as it is, I wouldn't get anything else done. So chainsaw it is, and bow saw and hook, or no, not the bow saw, the hook for tidying up some of the wood that's left. Right, that's enough now. I'm desperate for a pint. It's going to get dark very soon, and I've just got to feed the bull, pick up my tools. It's bloody hard work, but the reason I do it is, one, it's satisfying, two, I want to steep this whole hedge. In the future, and there are now actually grants available for laying hedges in the traditional way. It's not a huge amount of money, but it makes a contribution. I haven't actually got any grants for this, but the reason I do it is it keeps it real. It reminds you of how bloody hard people used to work back in the day. So I've got a huge heap of brash wood, which I'm just going to use on the bonfire, but that would have been turned into faggots in the old days, and that would have been what fired people's cooking ovens and fireplaces. And there's tons of it come off this hedge. It would have kept a big house going for a week, probably. I've probably pulled the best part, a quarter of a ton of firewood out of that. Obviously still needs to be logged up. So from, you know, less than 20 yards of hedges, there would have been fuel. Yeah, really important fuel for a family. And they'd have grafted to do it, and it would have been a huge mainstay of their winter work. So I always like to do it just to remind myself sort of how hard people had it. But also looking to the future, who's to say that hedgerow fuel might not become very important, you know, in the not too distant future. So I always think it just pays to keep a hand in and pay to remember what these things feel like to do.